action.
All right, welcome back to the Biology at Home classroom. We're out here on an absolutely beautiful sunny day in the spring. Perfect time to talk a little bit more about photosynthesis, wrap that up and segue it into our next topic, which will be cellular respiration. And so I wanted to start with what's going on with these peach trees. First of all, you know, since the last time I had these guys out on video, there's a lot more leaves. Remember, photosynthesis is going to be taking place in the leaves. So the more leaves they have, the more photosynthesis they can do, the more sugars they can produce. But remember, the sugars are being produced. Remember, an organism like a plant that can produce its own food in the form of sugars like glucose, we refer to that as an autotroph. Okay, organisms that have to get their sugar or get their food from their environment, we refer to them as heterotrophs. Okay, but their end goal is both the same. It's to get the energy in the form of food. Plants can make their own with all the photosynthesis they got going on, but the end result is to convert that food, that glucose, into ATP. That's where cellular respiration comes in. We'll get to those details a little bit later on. Now, why do we need the ATP? Remember, ATP is the energy source. All living things are going to need energy for all kinds of biological processes. A lot of it involves making proteins for growth and development. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now on these guys. This plant is growing like crazy, stems and leaves shooting off everywhere. You can see some of the little peaches, the fruit starting to form. It's taking a lot of those sugars and converting it into the fruit. Okay, putting energy into reproduction. Okay. Now, of course, we got a lot of growth and a lot of photosynthesis going on. So let's take just a few minutes to take a quick tour and get caught up on what's going on all the growing things that are carrying out photosynthesis in our neck of the woods. Remember last time we were clearing out a bunch of this section here to add some garden. So we've done that. We've got another tomato here and a couple of zucchini plants going. On the other side of the water tank here, we've got a bed that's hopefully going to give us some cucumbers if we can keep the cat from digging it up. Over here, we got a couple of more tomatoes and some scallop squash that I put some seed. We'll see how that comes up. And then over here, we got a few more tomato plants and a few more varieties of squash that we put the seed down just a couple of days ago. We'll see how that germinates as well. Okay. Now, I know some of you have been wondering about some of our orphan plants over here, so let's check in on their progress. Okay, here's all the plants we got left. I distributed all the plants at the school yesterday, and so here's who's left. Timmy, who's our orphan Bonnie Best plant. Timmy's doing really well, getting a lot of leaves, going to be growing and carrying out photosynthesis gangbusters here pretty quick. And then Rocky, remember, was the one who got severed in the ball playing accident. Even Rocky putting some energy into leaf production in the form of, he's even got his arms up like in the Rocky stance, my son noted. So hopefully he'll survive and reproduce. We also got some pepper plants to possibly replace some of the ones that we planted over here earlier that aren't doing so well. Let's go look in on the Venus flytraps next. All right, here are the Venus flytraps. Look at this. Look at these leaf production, these new leaves coming out. A lot of green for photosynthesis, but also some beautiful little traps for catching insects. Look over here. You can see the husk of a fly. That's, there you go, right there. See the husk of that fly that's been long since dead, opened back up, ready to do it all again. Okay, and then over here on these, you can see these guys, the flowers starting to really shoot up. Of course, they want the flowers to open up way up above the carnivorous leaves because we don't want the carnivorous leaves eating the insects that are trying to do the pollinating. So they try and separate them by that means. Over here in the main garden, of course, we got here's all our green beans coming up nicely. We got 3 different varieties. I had one bed that kind of got washed out. These are the dragon tongues. But notice about green beans when they come up. Look how big and wide, broad those leaves are. Lot of surface area to carry out photosynthesis. And so beans come up, they make these broad leaves, they'll fill out and grow really quickly and hopefully be producing some beans in another few weeks from now. Okay? So that's kind of an update on the garden situation. Now let's dig into cellular respiration a little bit, see if we can tie photosynthesis to cellular respiration. Okay, remember last time we talked about photosynthesis and we went through the equation, so let's just quickly review that. Remember, photosynthesis involves taking 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, some light, usually in the form of sun, and what gets produced is 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. And remember, we refer to what molecules are on the left side of the yield arrow, we refer to them as the reactants, and then what's on the right side, what gets produced, those are the products, okay? Well, cellular respiration, you already know what respiration is, okay? Breathing. It's taking in oxygen and getting rid of CO2. But we're talking about doing that down at the level of the cell, okay? So when we talk about cellular respiration, really, it's just the opposite of photosynthesis. Organisms like plants make the glucose, make the sugars. They will then turn around and consume those sugars, or heterotribes like ourselves will eat plants or eat things that have eaten plants to obtain those glucose molecules. We don't just eat glucose. Hold on a second. We don't just eat glucose, okay, we eat other molecules too, but ultimately how cellular respiration works, we can show it by taking the glucose that is the result of photosynthesis, okay, and in the presence of oxygen, okay, that's going to yield some carbon dioxide, some water, but most importantly, it's going to yield ATP, okay? And I didn't give myself enough driveway space here to do my little burst of energy here, okay? But that's what the main product of cellular respiration is. It's getting that ATP made so that we'll have energy to do things like build proteins for growth, for development, for reproduction, all that active transport, all those biological processes that living things have to do all day long. So everybody has mitochondria and everybody carries out cellular respiration. Plants have the ability to do this, okay? But they're not producing sugars for us to eat, although we can certainly eat them, but they're producing sugars for themselves as well, okay? So the end result, now of course we have to balance some things. We have to include our coefficients of 6 oxygen molecules, 6 CO2s, and 6 waters, okay? But when we're comparing photosynthesis and cellular respiration, first of all, we're saying that they're opposites of each other, okay? So they kind of, one feeds the other in that sense, okay? And so we say that the reactants of photosynthesis here are the products of cellular respiration here, and vice versa. The reactants of cellular respiration are the products of photosynthesis. The big difference being that photosynthesis requires energy. It's an endergonic process. It must take in energy, whereas cellular respiration is an exergonic process. It releases energy in the form of ATP, okay? So now, in the next video, we're going to dig into just a few of the details of cellular respiration.